Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. This week I'm going to be working on Huey, which is one of 4 black Landrover Defenders that I hire out up here in Scotland. Now, most of the time these cars get really well looked after, but there is a lot of wear and tear that happens, and one thing that I want to focus on this week is paint correction. So we're going to be going over the car. I bought myself some new toys. We're also going to try a little bit more paint spraying and also some wet and dry sanding. All new things to me. Let's see how it goes. So today we are going to take a look at Huey, which was the first of the new Defenders I got after I lost 2 in 2 days a couple of years ago with my insurance payout. Let's get this camera turned around. Here he is in all his glory. So Huey is a 2002 Defender, making him 22 years old this year. And 2 years ago, I actually had him repainted. And at the time, I won't say the paint job was in any way good, but it was a hell of a lot better than how it's looking now. It's stuff like this has kind of made me realize I would like to learn more painting, which is why I've kind of quietly behind the scenes been gaining more and more gear to do that. And right now, with it being dirty, you're not going to see just how badly scratched Huey or any of my other Defenders are. That's a whole nother story. That was resprayed by someone who's actually a friend of mine. He does a lot of great work on my Land Rovers, but he's done such an incredibly bad job of painting it that I'm gonna have to learn how to wet sand that and actually see if I can rescue it or repaint it. But for today, back onto Huey. So Huey, I think, is rescuable. Another thing I don't like about Huey is this horrible, horrible mushroom top snorkel that we've got on him. Now, apparently these are the better snorkels in terms of performance, but hey, I prefer look. So we're going to be putting on a more modern plastic style snorkel onto him as well. But first things first, let's get him down the car wash, give him a bit of a clean, and then see if all of that is going to fit underneath my new detailing light. After a little run down to the local Scratch and Shine, I decided to see if I could squeeze that Land Rover underneath the new detailing light. And guess what? I had a whole 10 centimeters clearance. Not planned, but sometimes you do get lucky. Next stage, have a little bit of a closer look and see how bad that paint actually is. Unfortunately, my new detailing light is incredibly good at doing what it's meant to be doing, and that is showing up just how badly this paintwork has been damaged. This has come from using a house mop to mop the whole vehicle whilst it was still covered in mud. And when I say every single panel was attacked, I mean every single panel got the same special attention. So, Land Rovers get scratched. It's completely normal. Maybe you've got one. Maybe you've taken it green laning, which is unfortunately something we cannot do in Scotland. But when that happens, or when you let someone wash your car that perhaps doesn't have a clue how to wash it, and it comes back covered in all these swirls, what do? Well, I saw it as an opportunity to go out and buy another toy. Meet toy. One of the reasons I got this is because it has a force mode on it, and the force mode essentially means that when this random orbital sander is turning around and doing its job, on most random orbital sanders, if you push too hard, that will just start vibrating but not spin anymore. The spinning will stop, and the reason for that is completely valid. It's to make sure you don't burn your paintwork. We'll get set up, pick a panel, because they're all just as bad as each other. So our main player for the day is going to be this VM compound by Tetrasil. I don't even know if they still make this. I've had this for probably 6 or 7 years and not used it all. But I've got a feeling that's going to change today. One thing I've read on the bottle is this should be used between 1800 and 2500 RPM. However, my new Ferrari of a polisher goes up to 6500 RPM, and I may be slightly tempted to push the recommended speeds. So I tried polishing with the Tetrasil just by itself, and I was seeing quite a lot of swirl marks in the paint. So it doesn't say this on the instructions, but I've watered down my mop head and I'm just going over the same thing again. And this color that you can see going through there, that kind of dull grayness, that is the paint getting lifted off. So I think we might be, fingers crossed, going in the right sort of direction. Now, one thing that I haven't mentioned is I went out and I got quotes for trying to get this paintwork back so it didn't look like it was fully scratched. Generally, when there's this much damage on paintwork, and again, I appreciate you're not really going to see that in this video, you'd be looking at a full respray. I was quoted £550 per car to even attempt to remove the swirls, the scratches, and all the other damage to this paintwork. So instead of paying that out, I've gone and upgraded my tools so that if anything like this comes along in the future, it's another revenue stream for me. It's something else I can learn and something else I can do myself. Few hours in now and definitely learning a lot about polishing these cars. That first panel took me about 2 hours, and I'll be the first to admit, still don't know what I'm doing, but I've learned so much. So first thing is, wetting the sponge every single time I get on a panel is making a huge difference. I'm basically using 2 polishing pads. I've got the super hard one, and then I've got the next one down, which I've got a few of, which are these. When I'm moving from the hard to the soft, I'm giving it a good soap in my bucket and then rinsing it off and then getting on the panel. One of the biggest things I've learned is, even though it says max 2,500, I've been running this on a finishing speed of, I think it's 6,800. So that is way, way, way over what the recommended speed is. But the finish that I'm getting, and let me get a bit further away and kind of show you the whole car, but it is absolutely gleaming. I probably need to move this out from under the light so you can see it a bit better, but it's really, really, really starting to look good now. So after I did that, moved on to the front, got a little bit better, and then started moving down the vehicle, and I've gone from 2 hours to probably an hour to 45 minutes to half an hour. So yeah, once I get to the other side of the vehicle, it's gonna go quite a lot quicker. So nothing is ever that quick, is it? It took me about another 7 hours to cut and polish the rest of the Land Rover. And that wasn't even all of it. I did the back, I did the other side, but I hadn't done the bonnet. But I got bored and I wanted to focus on something else, which led to me finally being able to remove that horrible, horrible mushroom snorkel I had on the front of the vehicle. Removing the snorkel meant I was able to get a better look at the oxidization around the windscreen and these little blocks that I removed as well. Land Rovers, as you all know, are aluminium, and we don't get rust, we get oxidization. So taking that into mind, I decided to give the vehicle a little bit of a light sand and use some body filler to try and flat the areas out and make it look a little bit more presentable. So another reason why I've kind of taken these off rather than just prepping them in place is that I just think when things are sprayed up, you know, if everything's already together and you start spraying it, it can start to look a little bit budget. Whereas if we prep these parts individually, they're going to look a lot better. The other thing is here, you know, I would have liked to get this off as well, but time restraints today are kind of slowing me down. The only other painting I've really done is the motorbike tank where I use cellulose, but today I'm going to be using a 2-pack, which is still available, a bit more of an old school paint, I believe, because everything is water-based these days, but for what I need. Cellulose doesn't really come up with much of a gloss. A rattle can wouldn't give me the finish I want. So yeah, we're going to get some primer on here now. I'm going to finish off masking the rest of this up, and then yeah, get some primer on, pop down to my local car part store, Car Components, go and pick up some, hopefully, ready for me black 2-pack, and we can get this laid up and looking, hopefully, a lot better. This is looking a lot better. Let me show you what I've learned about primer, and that is that it does show up your imperfections. So we can see some marks around here, and the side, well, that is masking tape, but on the edge that we're actually going to have, that'll be fine because that'll all get buffed in. We've got a slight issue there, but what I'm really keen to see is if we get the colour on, whether it fills up any of these small imperfections. Now this side, now that we've got the primer on, you know, all the holes have disappeared. There's a slight shadow of them just there. But nothing I'm too concerned about. And again, if this was going to be an edge that you could see more, let me just see if I can get in so I can show you a bit better. But there. So you got some small imperfections there. There is another one here on the corner. But our new Snorkel is going to go up that side. And again, if I was being an absolute perfectionist, or even a starter perfectionist, I guess I would go over all this again. But this car is going out on Monday for a rental. We're on Friday, and I would like to have some semblance of a weekend to deal with the Mini. So yeah, we're going to get this sprayed. Other parts are over here. And look at the difference. It is just insane. Like, you spend a bit of time, it's like they say, you know, it's all in the prep work, and these are going to look fantastic. So from my research, fast hardener is better if you're trying to cure paint at room temperature. I'm in Scotland, and room temperature is generally going to be a little bit cold, but this will cure faster than if I was used to use a standard thinner, which I believe is better for if you're baking your paint in a proper 70 grand booth, which I do not have. I really do have a lot to learn, but I've chosen to stick with the basics on this one. I'm mixing my paint on a standard 2-to-1 mixture. That's 2 parts black paint, 1 part hardener, and then once I've got the volume of that, I add 10% thinners to it. Now, one thing that painting is teaching me is patience. Every single one of these steps has to be done properly. If you mess up on the bodywork, if you mess up on not mixing your paint properly, you inevitably end up with issues. And that was something I was just about to find out again. The paint is going on, and I have had no issues with that. However, the paint isn't atomizing properly, so I need to go away and research that and figure out why it's getting thrown on more in chunks than in a fine spray. Slightly disappointing, but I do know if I take my time, I'm going to do 2 or 3 coats tonight. I'm going to give it about 15 minutes between coats so it can kind of half cure, flash off. I've laid down a couple of coats of black now, and results have been mixed, which is cool. Definitely something we can learn from. Let me just turn this around and show you. So if I zoom in and try and catch the light, that's really black. Let me just see if I can get anything in terms of, it's quite hard to catch in the light, but there's a lot of orange peel in it. And I need to figure out, there you go, you can catch it there. So there's a lot of orange peel in this, which I just do not know why. It's going to be something I'm going to have to teach myself a little bit more about. Now, one thing I did the first time I used my spray gun is I warmed the paint up, and I'm wondering if I got a better lay and better atomization because of that. I've also played around with the gun a second time on a bit of cardboard, so it was coming out the gun a bit better. I'm gonna wait for this for about 20 minutes. It's had 2 coats now. And then on my final coat, I'll layer it on, make sure I'm patient, don't put too much on. I can deal with the orange peel. That's something I can cut and polish out, hopefully, but I don't want to be dealing with runs. I don't want to start having to wet and dry sandpaper this, but we're getting there, and it's exciting, and it's a new skill, and it's really enjoyable. If I come in closer here, you can see the arms. I've got actually, you know, there's almost a reflection in that. Calm down, Josh. But this, look at that. It's like it's been laid on with a Schultz gun, which is not good, but we will own our learning curve. Coming over here to the other parts that we've done. Now, if I zoom in on that, now that is going a lot more glossy, and that is super interesting. So I'm wondering why it's laying down better on these parts than it is on that. Is it anything to do with it going onto a vertical surface versus a flat one? Let me know. So it has been about 36 hours. I sprayed the Land Rover on Friday night. It's now Sunday morning. I've done some research, and I think my issue was with the paint was that I didn't use enough thinners, which is why I've got this very, very noticeable orange peel. Certain parts, however, are a lot better, like the arms aren't half as bad. And coming around to the other side, exactly the same thing. So just to show you a couple of other things now, this, where I've taken off my masking tape, is where the car was resprayed by someone before me. And you can see why getting a good etch and sanding everything up is so important, because that hasn't been done there. It means that when I've pulled off the masking tape, it's given me these slight issues. I decided to have a go at wet sanding, and I went at this with a 2000 and then a 5, no, I think it was a 6000 actually, a 5 or a 6000 grit paper, and look at the difference. Look at that. The difference in finish after you've wet sanded is fantastic. I had the same issue that I did with the motorbike tank. So when I'm getting to edges, it's just catching there. I'm going to see if I can sand that red off and get rid of that. Paintwork is hard. Bodywork is hard. Even polishing is hard. Every single one of these steps that I've been learning more about this week just teaches me how patient and how particular I need to be to get a good finish. With less than 24 hours before Huey was due to go out on another camping adventure with clients, I needed to get him back together. The last couple of things I decided to do was remove the bonnet and really attack some of the deep blemishes that had happened, because I think people had been climbing all over my cars and taking photos. This is part and parcel of hiring your vehicles out, and it's something that now I can tackle by treating the paintwork and, if necessary, even respraying it. Anyway, I think that's enough of me this week, but I've really enjoyed showing you, well, me trying to figure things out as usual. If you've liked watching this video, please hit subscribe, or at least give me a like. And if you haven't, well, tell me what you didn't like in the comments, or even tell me what I could have done better. Anyway, I'm going to go and hit the hay. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next time. Bye, guys.